All right, some other developments. We're following the possibility that banks are girding for something on the pandemic front. They've set aside billions of dollars, close to $30 billion, when you consider the likes of JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup that have put this money aside just in case they have loan losses that are tied to the pandemic. I got Scott Martin here following these developments. How significant is that, Scott, in your eyes?
Well, it's record territory for those loan loss provisions, so I guess you could call that significant, Neil. It's a tough time for the banks for two reasons. One is certainly the equity stock price for banks versus, say, the S&P 500 and other sectors has not been good this year. They're well behind the major averages. And then secondarily, if you look at their business going forward, you mentioned the loan loss provisions and the fact that some of the comments out of the banks about how they see things going forward have a lot of concern when it comes to certainly corporate real estate and also things like, say, net interest margin when they borrow short and lend long to us as the consumer. Those things have been under pressure, too, and therefore pressuring their earnings and stocks.
I'm wondering, taking all of that together, worries about the virus, you know, juxtaposed against hope for a vaccine, this whole Moderna excitement, which wins out, you think? How is this all going to play out?
I believe the vaccine wins out, but it wins out in a longer-term basis. For the short term, there is a lot of nervousness, and we're kind of hanging on every headline that comes out there, and the banks, I think, certainly are too. We own JP Morgan and Citigroup here, Neil, for a lot of reasons. One of them is valuations. If you look at their price versus their earnings, they're still relatively cheap. If you look at the fact that some of the management at the banks, I believe, has set up the banks very well to weather some of these issues. So even though we're talking about record loan loss provisions, that's already kind of in the stocks. And so as you look forward to these banks, if they're correct on what they're kind of preparing for, that will actually make them better in the future as far as investments from here.
How do you like the interest rate situation right now? A number of Fed governors, district presidents talking about the fact this is going to be a slow-go recovery from this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it depends what you want to do with interest rates. If you're a borrower, it's great. I mean, we just refied our home last week and got an insanely low rate. Didn't have to come to the table with any cash either, which was great. Thanks. But if you're a lender like a bank, you want to see interest rates start to tick up so that you're not paying very much on deposits, but you want to start to lend out that money at higher rates. That's how you make what they call that net interest margin I mentioned earlier. So depending on what side of the curve you're on there, depends on how you feel about it. But I do believe, Neil, even though the Fed has kept interest rates so low for so long, they do want to see that curve steepen as the economy continues to reopen.
All right. Thank you, my friend, very, very much.